I was thinking about one of my coworkers, and I thought that he has an obsession with his work and with status, with chasing promotions, chasing opportunities to work up in the corporation, and it suited him well in many ways. And yet, in many ways, that's also his demon too, because he's so consumed by always being on that treadmill that he can't actually be free. He can't actually be true first and above all to himself. And if you say not now, then when? When will you be true to yourself? When will you live for your own self instead of being defined by the agendas, the interests of someone else? It's like that parable where a guy said, I'll give you as much land as you want if you just walk full circle all the way around it before the sun goes down. And he never had to give away any land because everybody was so greedy. It was never enough. They never made it back before the sun set. And that's how it is when you're chasing a career, when you're looking for that next thing just over the next rise, and you never get there because you're always chasing it. Always living to the fullest extent of your means. Always stretching. Sometimes the things that make people successful are also the things that hold them back. I was thinking about somebody else who is always kind of that nosy, curious, meddling personality. The person that's irritating because they always want to know what's going on. They just don't ever feel satisfied not knowing other people's business. And this person I'm thinking of is not a bad person. And yet, if I was going to say, what is her demon? What is that thing that just stands out as that obnoxious, over-the-top thing that is not a good trait? It would be that. When you look at other people, it's really easy to see their demons. You can see the things that are maybe strengths in some situations and downfalls in others. You can see the things that hold them back, the things that they refuse to give up, that they should give up, the things that are easy, simple things that would make their lives better, and yet they won't, because familiar demons are so very hard to shake. We can see that when we're looking from our perspective in at other people's lives. And yet, if we're honest, it's just as easy to see those things in ourselves if we want to look. So what are your demons? What are the things that hold you back? The things you could do better about, but you choose not to. And you always say, one day it'll be a convenient time for me to do the right thing for myself or for others. And then another day, another weekend goes by, and you never quite get around to that simple act of being true to yourself. It's important to be able to see the faults of others, to be able to see through their charades, if you will. It's even more important, though, to be able to see your own bad habits, your own demons, and understand that you aren't better than other people, because we all have our own unique problems that we allow to exist in our lives that we should do something about. So that brings me to another thing that I think is pretty important, and that is the virtue of being transparent and honest. It's really easy to live your life behind a safety screen, and you always avoid talking about things that cast you in a poor light. You always avoid things that don't seem safe or convenient. And you don't really achieve anything if you have that mentality. Because what's really attractive is honesty. It's a genuine spirit. It's being willing to be transparent and vulnerable so that others know that you're actually authentic. And it seems really like something that should be easy, but it's actually much harder than you would imagine to just tell the truth and be willing to be open about the reality of yourself in a way that maybe would help other people. And that leads me to the topic of what value you offer. If you were to tally it up and you imagine that we all have a gross domestic product in our lives, the things that we export, whether those are things we make or spiritual and intellectual qualities of the mind, maybe things we do to inspire others or experiences that we share with others. There's so many different things we can do to export quality into the world. And that could be writing a blog or writing a book or just being there to listen to somebody or to share your experiences with somebody. There's lots of different things that you could do. But it's important to take a tally of what you're exporting into the world versus what you're consuming. And there should be a relative balance that you are consuming and producing approximately just as much, so that you can say, these are things that I do for others. These are things, this is quality and value which I share. And then on the other side, these are the things which I consume. So learn to have fun, be mindful, invest in things that create a sense of routine in your life. Find things you can do that enrich yourself, which you can also share. And if you can find something that's fun and uplifting and mindful, that helps you build a positive routine, that enriches yourself and enriches others, and you can make money doing it, that's the best life to live. There's a lot of people who deflect ignorance with condescension. It's just a subtle thing, but you'll know it when you see it. It's that tendency to talk down to somebody as a way to prevent them from realizing that you don't really know what you're talking about. You can tell when somebody's pulling your leg. You can tell when you're being gamed or when someone is being political and they're not telling you the honest truth. And even if it's kind of risky, being honest with people and telling them things that they don't want to hear will get you further than always playing it safe and hiding behind a screen like the little man in the Wizard of Oz that was behind the curtain, making himself seem like a great and powerful wizard. Another thing, don't spiritually criticize people. Who do what you don't want to do. And by that I mean, I could go out and I could point out some guy who's a macho caricature of, I guess, the toxic, aggressive alpha personality. And I could talk down about that person, this guy, but I don't want to be that person. And there's certain things that personality type is good for. So I don't want to criticize people for being who they are, even if it's obnoxious, even if it's imperfect. I don't want to criticize people because the world needs all different kinds of people. You can't have a world of light without darkness. So you've got to learn to celebrate the darkness around you, because that's what makes it possible for you to enjoy a sunrise. So before you go down the path too much of criticizing others just because you see something you think is a weakness in their character, take into consideration that the world wouldn't be a better place if everybody was like you. And then stop complaining so much about the problems other people have and celebrate the qualities that they offer. And that doesn't mean you have to surround yourself with them. Doesn't mean that you have to put yourself in a position where they're going to do you harm. But it's a really enlightening and liberating thing to just get to the point in life where you really believe that all things work together for good. And you stop thinking that the world would be a better place if everybody thought or acted more like you. Demons sometimes give people the strength that they need for the circumstances that they face. And that doesn't mean that we're making excuses for bad behavior. It doesn't mean that it's right to say, you should just not do anything about trying to improve yourself. But it is nevertheless useful to, as I said, understand that the world does need all different sorts to function well. So work on having a healthy economy of ideas and don't run a deficit. Figure out how to contribute just as much as you consume. And there's so many different ways of doing that. Your life shouldn't be just about exporting your own physical labor. And it's true that we do have jobs and we do things that are productive in that way, and those are important. But our lives should be about more than that. We should also export spiritual commodities, thought commodities. We should share our opinions. We should do things that spiritually uplift others. If we find things that encourage us, we should find a way to share those messages so that they can encourage other people too. And that's something that I think that we lose sight of, because it's so easy to get sucked into today's distraction mentality of always being immersed in some sort of media. We're always scrolling through something. We're always consuming some kind of media, watching something, but we don't really produce value. We're not really of a mind to make content as much as we're interested in consuming other people's content. We're not as interested in working on ourselves as we are in criticizing other people for not working on themselves. And the truth is that when we get to the end of our lives, we're not going to wish that we would have done more to get other people to do what we wanted them to do. We're going to wish that we did more with our lives. And it's important, as we talk about the idea of sharing ideas, to remember that there's a reason why a football player makes more money than a school teacher, even though the school teacher does more for society than the football player. It's because the football player affects more people's lives. So as you contemplate, how can you make a difference in the world? How can you do something of value with your life? It's important to realize that it doesn't matter how much potential you have to do good. It doesn't matter how much potential you have to develop talent. If you choose to do nothing with it, or you choose to do very little with it, then ultimately it's kind of all for nothing. Like, does it really matter that you had the potential to write a book if you never actually wrote a page in your life? Or you had the potential to be a great orator, but you never found the courage to speak. Or you had the potential to be there to build people up and inspire them, but you just never got around to it. The best time to start working on yourself is now. And the best way to begin is by learning to stop criticizing other people, stop being angry at other people just because they exist and they are who they are. When you spend your time mentally making excuses for yourself while you judge and criticize the shortfalls of others, that's a very poor way to live your life. So be kind, be positive, be happy, and try to look for ways to give back just as much as you consume. Till next time. Goodbye.